Welcome to the Bravo Papers, a safe space for all us Bravo fans who love to analyze, deconstruct, and talk about our favorite Bravo shows ad nauseum. So join me, Bravo and Botox, and we'll catch up on all the Bravo news and read way too much into our favorite shows and Bravo celebrities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bravo Papers, here with your Vanderpump Rules after show recap. I have to give a little preface before today's episode. I am sick and I caught whatever my kid had, and now I have it, and I am not recovering as quickly as she did. I guess her immune system is better than mine. So I may need to pause to blow my nose or cough or sniffle, etc. Or I may just need to sniffle and cough while I'm recording. I'm going to try to pause it so you don't have to listen to it. But it may not be possible every single time. Otherwise, we'll be here for a long time. If I have to keep stopping and starting, it'll take me 17 hours to record this, which I don't want that because I need to go to bed. But I didn't want to leave you all hanging, okay? Because it was the season finale. And despite the fact that I feel like shit, I still was infuriated watching it and, all worked up. And I need to talk about it. So today I took notes on the after show. I was surprised there was an after show. I didn't even think they were going to do that because we have the reunion. And I thought that at the reunion, the big surprise is that they're not that like it's a surprise because they showed us in the trailer, but they're going to show the cast, the last, I don't know, whatever amount of the finale where they see Tom's hot mic moment, etc. Right? So I'm like, okay. But then I guess they didn't really talk about that in the after show. So when I watched it, I realized I was like, okay, they didn't talk about Tom's hot mic but they do talk about Ariana walking away. So there's that. So I guess the hot mic moment is going to be like the big surprise for all of them at the end. I don't know. I don't think that's that shocking. So before we get into the after show, I need to talk about what's been going on online with this finale because okay, so Cece Loves Bravo, who I think her name now is Cece Loves You, I think. So she's a content creator who has a big following on Instagram, and she covers a lot of Vanderpump Rules stuff and Bravo stuff. Yeah, Cece Loves You. So shout out to Cece Loves You. So she posted that she had some inside tea from the finale, and this was on her Instagram. So just in case you didn't hear about this, her inside tea, trigger warning here because there is going to be some discussion of suicide, okay, just coming up. So I just want to give people a fair warning. She said that she spoke to Kyle. Is it Kyle Chan? Yes, Kyle Chan. So he apparently talked to Cece, or she spoke to him on the phone, I think is what she said in the video. And and apparently Kyle Chan told her that there's going to be a clip, I guess, that they're going to watch at the reunion where where Kyle tells someone, I don't know, or Kyle says that Tom told him that he, Sandoval, purchased a gun with the intention of, I guess, like maybe thinking about taking his life or something like that. Okay. So this is what allegedly Kyle told Cece. Okay. Now, Cece says on her Instagram that this is verified tea. I don't know why she would lie. I don't think she would. The only, she tagged Kyle Chan in the post, all this stuff. So it was a little surprising to me. I have to be honest, because I was just like, why would he tell you all this? Like, I'm not saying that she's lying or I don't believe her, but it's making me question, like, why would Kyle Chan give this away? Like, wouldn't he kind of get in shit for that? Like, I know he's not a cast member, so maybe he doesn't have like such an ironclad contract as the rest of them do, but that's a big spoiler to give away, right? And he was on this season and he was given a platform to promote his business and to promote his, the whole finale revolved around his party. He was in the show a lot more this season than he's ever been. So I was just kind of like, why would he give this away? I think that's the thing that's kind of confusing me, unless he's purposefully putting this out as like a decoy. So that was my other thought. Maybe he's telling a blogger or content creator this to try to like throw people off the scent so that, I don't know, so that the finale is more of a shocker. So that's the only thing I can think of. So listen, if that's true, right now I'm going to treat it as a maybe. But now that I've watched the finale, I'm like, I just don't like, there was no hint of that. Could it have been edited out? Yes. And then maybe they're going to edit it back in and show them. But I was getting the impression from the finale that the surprise thing is going to be like the Tom Sandoval hot mic thing, because they recorded the reunion like a couple weeks ago or more than that, right? So at the time it had not aired yet. So none of them had seen that yet, right? So I thought that it was going to be more like Tom Sandoval being like, huh, that looks good for me. And like his little snarky ass comments at the end. That's what I'm thinking, right? So, and them reacting to that, and Ariana seeing Lala's little, I don't know what we wanted, her speech at the end, where, she loses her shit and basically says, oh, we've all been honest, like her little confessional at the end, right? So that's what I was thinking. Listen, I'm not one who loves like the predictions and the guessing and, when it comes to finales and to the quote unquote surprises, because last year when it came to the finale, okay, everybody was like, what is the surprise going to be with Rachel? We knew there was going to be some sort of bombshell that would, quote unquote, change everything. And it was going to be like this big thing. And then it ended up being a big fat nothing burger. Like, not that it was nothing, because we got confirmation that the affair had started like before Mexico, before Sheena's wedding in Mexico. But we all knew that. Like, James and other people had so much as like told us that on social media. There'd been timelines mapped out. Like, the internet did what the internet does, and they did it very well, researching, oh, look, she posted this picture on this day. Like, we'd put that together already, and no one believed Tom that it was a one night stand. The only thing shocking about it was, I guess, that Rachel finally kind of like threw him under the bus. So that was the only thing. But people were predicting Rachel's pregnant. Like, that was a big thing. There was a TikToker who was like, I have 100% verified tea that Rachel is pregnant. And like, people were fully running with it. Somebody thought they had a picture of her at the airport looking like she had a baby bump. Like, the guesses were the guesses were just like going and going. Now again, so because of that, I'm just saying I'm very cautious. Very, very cautious when it comes to, you know, rumors and like, ooh, it's going to be some crazy twist, because they always make it out to be something, and it's usually like 99.9% of the time it's something that's like not as big as maybe what we all want it to be or hope it will be. You know what I mean? So that's why, listen, I just don't want you all and myself to get our hopes up, because we always do that, don't we? And then we're always like, oh, like, screw you, Bravo. You always do this to us. And like, I'm like Sheena at this point. Like, fool me once, shame on me. Like, it's like Bravo has fooled me, I don't know, like 900 times. So we're definitely at the shame on me point. So I have to say that, if I'm disappointed by whatever it ends up being, it's my own fault. That's why I'm so cautious about believing this, even if it did come from Kyle Chan's mouth. I'm still gonna be cautious because I gotta protect my dignity here, people. Okay? We all need to. And you know what? I think we've done a pretty good job this season because these producers and the show have tried to make a fool out of, I think, a lot of the audience, or they've at least shown us that they think we're idiots who can't read between the lines and who don't understand subtext. And they have failed. So, like, I just feel like they've been trying to gaslight us this whole season. And, people overuse that term, but in this case, it's real. Okay. In this case, it's real. Okay. So, another thing I need to say is that I know I didn't do a recap of last week's what's it called? After show. Did I already say this? I don't even remember. I'm sorry. I'm sick. My head's fuzzy. I didn't do it because it was boring. Honestly, I watched the after show. I took hardly any notes. There was nothing really that good, but I did write down the little bit that was good, and I am going to start with that, and then I'll go into the finale after show, which I am once again shocked that they even did. All right, so let's get into the episode 14 stuff first. So that would be last week's episode. Okay, so first they talk about Tom and the possibility of them being roommates. So James just goes in on them at this part, and it's kind of hilarious. He's like, it's a midlife crisis. They're both pathetic. James is like, they're going back in their life stages. Like, instead of going forward, they're going backwards. He's like, honestly, the two of them are going to be like this forever. He goes on, and I agree with every single thing he says. I don't have much more to say. Brittany co-signs this. She's not in the interview chair with James. She's in a different one, but she's still like, yeah, it seems like they're going backwards. Not that Brittany is one to talk because she's married to a guy who is, I don't know. Well, I guess he's not going backwards in terms of life phases, like in an obvious way, but he certainly is in terms of like his mentality. Or maybe he just never went forwards. He was just faking it. Kristen says it's a big red flag in a man. Yeah, thank you. It is. Katie says Tom is actively trying not to grow up. I can't remember which Tom she was talking about, probably both, and it makes sense for both. Schwartz says that if they do it, and this is where I just love Schwartz's delusion. This is where Schwartz says if they do it, it'll just be for a year while they build their businesses. What businesses, sir? Like Schwartz and Sandy's? Is that even a thing still? I haven't heard much about it. And what I have heard has been like it's doing really poorly and they may need to close it. So tell me what businesses you are talking about. I don't know. The 2.5% that you have in TomTom. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what business the Toms could do at this point. I don't know what they could do successfully where people would take them seriously and where people would pay money to them. But I guess people are still paying for Sandoval shows to a point. I don't know. It seems like kind of just, it doesn't seem like the outlook is bright. And also, by the way, for the record, if they move back in together, it'll be not for a year. It'll be like forever. So Sandoval says they have a podcast together. Okay. I didn't know that they were both on this podcast. I thought it was just Sandoval's. I don't know. I guess Schwartz is like a co-host, or maybe now that he feels like things have cooled off, he's going to be like, I am a co-host, guys. So Sandoval says they have a podcast together and they're doing other stuff. So, it would be good. I would love to know what the other stuff is. Then they talk about dating. Just kind of some general statements about that. Ariana says the reason that she went over to T was Billy Lee's friend. And the reason that Ariana went over to her was because Sheena was like, why is that girl talking to my husband for so long? Which is so funny and so Sheena. Sheena is so rattled, like, about getting cheated on because of this whole Sandoval thing. And that is the one thing that I do kind of feel bad for her because I can understand when it's in like your close group of friends that it would rattle you. That's the one thing I'll give her. Okay. Um, so Ariana went over to her being a good friend. And Ariana said, her impression is that she seemed young, but seems like Tom's got a thing about going young right now. And she said he seems to have like a mental thing about getting older. And that's probably why he's going after younger women. Makes sense. Katie says, he's immature. So maybe it makes sense for him to go for immature or younger people because it's more on his level. Also makes sense. James says that Sandoval just wants arm candy because, he still has his ego's as big as it ever was. And he wants to be like that guy. That's what I think. I think he wants to show that, like, I'm still it. And look, even though I fucked up this bad, I could still get a girl who went on a date with Leonardo DiCaprio. That's how hot. And who's like a model. Like, that's his way of just kind of flexing. Um, Sandoval says he met the new girlfriend. I think her name's Victoria. Basically, he stayed in contact with one of the girls that they met at the waterfront. And then he met her at a launch party for Special Forces. And he's like, she's a model, she's successful, she's got her own home. She doesn't care about social media, she doesn't watch the show. And then he keeps going on about how she's nurturing and very maternal, which is 100% a dig at Ariana because that was always like his thing that he tried to make Ariana out to be a devil about. Ooh, she doesn't want to have my children. What kind of a woman is this who doesn't want kids and isn't maternal? She's a cold monster. Like that was always his thing. Even though we saw her like clearly willing to like freeze embryos and do all that stuff last season. So that didn't really work out for him. But he's like, yeah, she's very nurturing and maternal. Maternal is such a weird thing to say too about like a woman who's younger than you. Like she's not super young, this girl. She's like 10 years younger than him. So she's like 30, which isn't, it's not like Schwartz who's dating like a 22-year-old or whatever, but it's still like, it's just weird that that would be like, she doesn't have kids as far as I know. So it's weird that that's the thing that he's harping on. And he doesn't mention like, oh, she's like has pets even. Like I don't know. It was just to me that was a dig at Ariana. And then they do ask him about her dating Leo and you could tell he's like fighting back a smile. And he's like, yeah, it was very brief. Maybe she aged out. Like he kind of makes that joke and then that's it. Like, okay. Now, according to my sources being the internet, the same sources that you all have. Um, Apparently, okay, so he was on Watch What Happens Live with Jax, which I have not watched yet, but okay, I'm gonna watch it. Okay, so if you have not watched it and you don't want to give them the views, don't watch it because I'm gonna watch it. I'll watch it for all of us and I'm gonna share the key points on my weekly news episode this week. Okay. I am also going to I've been posting clips from it on my Instagram stories. So you can kind of see like the highlights. So if you don't want to watch it in protest because it's two like terrible men, I support you. But, someone's got to watch it. Someone's got to spread the news. And listen, we're still watching Vanderpump Rules in the Valley, so we can't really stand on that much of a high horse in terms of supporting these men. We're still doing it. Let's be real. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, so she was there though. Sandoval's girlfriend. She was in the audience, and Andy like asked her a couple questions. Now, allegedly, they all went out after. Something happened. I don't know what. But something happened after they all went out, and then it was like the next day or whatever, she unfollowed him and he unfollowed her. So there's that. So yeah, I don't know what happened there, but it seems like maybe they broke up, which, okay, cool. And it's funny too, because he's like, she's not a big social media person. And then, like, the first thing she does is unfollow Tom Sandoval. Give me a fucking break. Honestly, this girl is maybe as delusional as he is in terms of like, if I tell people I don't use social media, it like makes me sound really cool and above it all. No, it doesn't. It just makes you sound kind of fake, especially since you have social media and we can clearly find your Instagram profile. Okay, so I just checked on her Instagram. It is a private account. However, she has 357,000 followers. So is it that private? She probably like makes it private for clout and then accepts like whoever, basically anyone who requests her, unless it's like someone she knows hates her or something. Okay. Anyways, let's keep going. So then we talk about Schwartz and Katie. Ariana says he has such a crush on you. It's weird. Um, Katie says, yeah, you know, all the guys want to lie next to me in bed and scroll on their phone, like kind of makes a joke. Schwartz says his favorite thing to do is to lie with Katie and scroll. And Katie says, you know, it's a really intimate thing. And she says they may as well just have sex because that would be less intimate than the scrolling, which I get what she's saying. Because, like, sitting with someone in silence, that means you're really close to that person, like, where you don't feel like you need to, like, talk and fill the silences. So I understand what Katie is saying. I don't think that Schwartz wants Katie back. I think that he will always have like a little bit of feelings for her and a little bit of a thing for her. And I think he just gets off with like messing with her head. Right. And I think he just gets kind of turned on by the fact that he can still make her blush and smile and also piss her off. And I think she kind of enjoys like just knowing that he like sort of still wants her, you know, and I think just them not being together is like kind of like a game for them in a way. And yeah, and like I think more power to them. Katie still has her freedom and her dignity, and you know, she doesn't have to worry about what he's doing at night, and that is freedom, baby. Okay, Schwartz says he hoped their divorce would be loving, caring, slightly passive aggressive, a little cheeky, a little roast here and there, and that's Katie's way of showing she loved him. Well, I guess Schwartz got his way on that one because who would have thought? Who would have thought that Katie and Schwartz would have like the most healthy breakup in the group? They really did. I'm not like that it was such a healthy breakup, but like the way it is now, they've kind of come to a place where I don't know, there's an understanding. Like when you look at how they were last season, I wasn't sure if they'd be able to get here. Ariana asks if maybe Schwartz has a kink about being humiliated and talked down to. And Katie kind of laughs. And then Schwartz says he loves couples that have like stayed friends, but can still take little jabs at each other. And Schwartz is kind of like happy in this part, but then Sandoval has to, you know, jump in and ruin it and says the first thing that she does is like just like get on him and like I don't know, nag him, he says. And as soon as she does this as soon as she sees him and it bothers him. So it bothers Sandoval. Like no one cares if it bothers you. If it bothers you, that's like just an extra bonus. That's a good thing. And then Jax co-signs this, of course, because Jax hates Katie and mentions the couch comment, I guess at BravoCon, when Schwartz was like, Katie, you look good. And Katie was like, you look like a couch. And everyone laughed. Any chance to hate on Katie? Any chance Jax and what's it called? Sandoval can take, they will do it. Even when Schwartz is talking about how they've done so well in their breakup. They're being like, you know, in harmony. They have like a good flow and they still can't just let him have it. Schwartz says, you know, when they were at BravoCon, she was just like performing for the audience and it was like down with the Toms. But then he takes it back and he's like, no, actually, it was just facetious. So I don't know. Whatever. Okay. Then they talk about something about her a little bit. So Brock chimes in here and said that he heard a rumor that there's permitting issues and that it's funny to him because Katie's biggest issue with Schwartz was the restaurant and Sandoval running off to play with his band. And then he's like, yeah, but now, Ariana is running off to New York while Katie's trying to open this restaurant. Is that what's happening? I just feel like that's a big assumption and Brock doesn't even know what's going on. And then there's all this like stuff with Penny. And again, it's like Brock acting like he knows something when he doesn't know something. Right. And yeah, Schwartz was pissed because Sandoval was just ignoring the restaurant so that because he was going through his like, I want to be a rock star phase. And he was just gone. Like Ariana has jobs and stuff that she's doing, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's ignoring and not fulfilling those responsibilities unless Katie has said that, but she hasn't. And I've never heard anything about it. And Katie and Ariana don't seem, or Katie doesn't seem mad about anything. So I don't know. I just feel like it's like he's just looking for things. He's searching and he's reaching and he's looking, right? Which it's annoying. And then Brock says that he looked up the trademark and it's owned by Penny and her husband, which means the brand is owned by them. And Ariana and Katie are having issues trying to get in contact with this woman. Okay. So I got a DM from a follower about this. And hang on, let me just pull it up because just nothing is making sense. And listen, I'm not like that invested in the something about her drama as some people are, because I've always just been like, I think the real truth is not as exciting as everybody wants it to be. Like a lot of people are like, "Ooh, it was like it was like a scheme so they could sell merch." And there's like people with all these conspiracy theories, including now Brock, right? Who's trying to be like, "Ooh, this, that, the other." Do I think they're having some issues probably with Penny? Yeah, it seems like they are. Okay. So let's go to my DM. So I want to just thank you to my follower who sent this to me. You know who you are, Inga. I don't I didn't ask for permission to give like her or his or their Instagram handle, so I don't want to say it, but I just said like a shortened version. Okay. So they said basically um that they did a quick search of the something about her trademark. And it took them, 5 minutes. There's 3 documents. The first one filed in 2021 already. Ariana and Katie are named as owners, no mention of Penny or even any other CEO. So Brock's T is BF. BS, not BF, sorry, BS. Please, everyone, I'm sick. I'm doing my best. And then okay. And then they actually did, which was very nice of them, sent along like the legal papers and stuff. And yeah, there is no mention. Like I see Ariana on it. I see like there's nothing about Penny or anyone on it. Um and then basically they had filed all of this way back. It says Maloney Schwartz. So this was probably like when she was still married. Well, it was, we know, when she was still married to Schwartz. Um, and then Penny, the chef, came in kind of later. So, yeah, so this follower also kind of gave me their opinion. I'm going to share it that they think production has some biases against Ariana and, are kind of letting Brock spew these lies without fact checking it. That it was an easy thing to find, Googling like trademark registry, California, etc. Now, I don't know if this is okay. So this is an LLC that they sent me. So I'm not sure if that's the same as like filing a trademark. Okay, so I just looked it up and LLC and trademark are different. I'm not an expert at this stuff, guys. So I don't know if it was just that like Penny's trying to take over like the intellectual property of something about her. But, either way, it just feels like I just don't know why Brock is commenting on this and why the producers are even asking for his opinion on this. Like, I mean, I guess they're asking anybody, but it's just like he's like, I've heard there's, you know, I've heard this rumor, I've heard that rumor. But again, it's like the restaurant is still owned by Ariana and Katie. I think it seems like the issue is more about what her role would be, what her salary would be, and it sounds like maybe she wanted a larger role, a larger chunk in profit, a larger salary than Katie and Ariana had originally thought. Right. And maybe Penny was kind of thinking this was going to be hers and she was sort of like taking over. And again, like like the person who DM'd me said, and I agree with them, like it does seem like it's like the only people I feel like we should be asking about this on the after show are Ariana and Katie because they are the ones who are in this and can tell us the facts and the truth about it from their perspective. Like I don't need really to hear Brock's perspective about this. I don't need to hear Brock's perspective about a lot of things, but I sure as shit am getting it. Okay, so let's talk. So thank you so much for sending me that DM and that information. And it is good to know that like the LLC is in Ariana and Katie's name. And, they are the owners of the restaurant. And that's kind of the most important thing. And I hope that if there is some shenanigans going on with the trademark, I hope they can figure that out because I mean clearly LVP is on Penny's side about this, about whatever it is. But yeah, I don't really trust LVP. We know LVP's a male sympathizer too, so there's that. All right, let's talk about Ariana and Dan. So Jasmine from the Valley says that, when she met Dan, it was just like a fun thing. So, like, probably just meant to be like a hookup or whatever, or like, let me get your number and we'll talk, whatever. But then it became something. Like, it wasn't planned. It wasn't like Ariana met him and was like, let me get into a serious relationship, which I have always maintained that. I've talked about that on this after show and on these podcasts. Like, Lala and her, like, she was with someone else 8 days later. She wasn't married to the guy 8 days later. She wasn't engaged to him. She was like texted him. She got his number at a wedding and was like, look at this hot thing that I want to bang, probably was her thought, to distract me from the depression and heartache. And have a lot of us not been there? We've been there. And you see this hot guy, you're like, oh, okay. And there you go. You start texting here and there and you're just like, this is a fun distraction. And then maybe it turns into something, maybe it doesn't. Like, it just it drives me crazy. Okay. So Brock says, it can be very difficult to be a plus one in this group because everyone is questioning if you're there for the right reasons. Well, yeah, everyone was questioning you, Brock, because you like a payroll husband who came on and immediately got all scooped up into the drama. We found out you had a wife or an ex-wife or whatever and kids back home that you're not paying for. So a little different than Dan, but anyways. Ariana says people like to criticize because they started talking 10 days after, the whole Scandival thing. But basically, she doesn't care. And Sheena says it was, it was quick. Weeks later, a few weeks later, I guess they posted holding hands and she was worried because God forbid it doesn't work out. It could be really hard because it would be like a double trauma, like Sheena went through with Shay and Rob. But like, wouldn't Sheena say that she went through all that and then it brought her to like her husband now, who's like the love of her life, allegedly, who she has a kid with, who she's obviously adores? Like, wouldn't you be like, if I hadn't gone through that, I don't know. I guess that's how I would think about it. So, and like, Sheena got through that. She got through a divorce. She was married to someone who was an addict. Did she handle it well? No. Um, But, she got through it, and then she rebounded. Her rebound didn't work out, and life went on and she was okay. And I think Ariana will be fine because what she's been through with Tom is a lot worse, and not maybe not worse than like getting a divorce. Well, I don't know. I guess it just depends on your perspective. But either way, she's been through a really crappy thing and she'll be fine. She's a big girl. Okay. All right. So, it's like the double trauma. So, Sheena goes on about that. Lala says she's worried because she remembers when Ariana was telling her about being in an emotionally and mentally abusive relationship before Sandoval. And then it manifested itself into the Sandoval relationship. So I guess what Lala's saying is that she never dealt with the abuse and then she went into the Sandoval relationship. Now, I hate saying this, but I actually agree with Lala about that. That is the only thing. I do think that Ariana was in an abusive relationship, and I do think that's why she kind of fell for a lot of Tom's, like magic show when she first met him. Because basically she was with a guy who was abusive, told her she was disgusting, all this kind of stuff. Then she's with Sandoval, who on the surface, he's not calling her names and insulting her. Like, he's like complimenting her and like telling her she's beautiful and that she's hot and like all this kind of stuff. And he's like doing all the stuff that she wanted. Right. But then he's more like low key manipulative in a way that's not as obvious, especially when, like, in comparison to her like really bad ex, maybe it seems like a step up. Right. So I do think that that is something to think about. However, I also think that Ariana, when she started dating Tom, she's just seems like such a different person now. And I do think that women go through such a huge change in their 30s. Like I'm 40 years old, and I got married when I was 30, and I am just a totally different person than I was then. I still love my husband, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm at the point where I know I would be okay. Like, God forbid if something happened and we got divorced, it would be terrible and it would be hard, but I know I'd be fine. Like, I actually think he would not be, but I would be. And I'm not trying to sound full of myself. It's just, I think women, as we get older, a lot of us get more confident and more secure in who we are. Like, I know that I could do it, and I know I would be devastated and sad and all that stuff, but I know I could get through it. You know what I mean? And I think I just see that in Ariana. Like, we're about the same age. I'm a little older than her, but I do think that she's at the point where, like, I don't think a relationship would destroy her again. You know what I mean? So, and I do also think she knows her worth more. Like, I think when she met Tom, she didn't really know her worth. But now she does know her worth. And I think if she doesn't get what she needs, I do think that she'll step in and I think she'll leave. And I think the same thing about Katie, to be honest. Like, I think Katie, like, I don't think Katie would settle for like a Schwartz again. I think she just wouldn't. um, the other thing is that Dan is 40, which I like. I like that Dan is, he's like a normal 40-year-old kind of guy. Like, he's not like this like arrested development type of 40 like the Toms are. So, I do think that's a good mix for now. Again, I don't know if this is going to work out. Maybe it doesn't. Again, it doesn't prove anything if it doesn't. All it proves is that a lot of relationships don't work out and sometimes they do. Like, that's life. Okay. Okay. So let's go to, I'm so sorry. I'm really going off on tangents today. So Lala's worried, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Ariana says, oh, yes. And then Ariana says this. I actually even thought this before she said it, but she says, Dan could turn out to be a con artist and terrible. But she says, I'll be fine. He's like, considering what I've been through, especially, she's like, but even if I hadn't been through it, I'll be fine. And like, and yeah, I see that in her. Like, it doesn't seem like with Lala where it's all talk and like putting up a front, like it seems authentic. And I believe her. I just do. I can only go on vibes, but I'm pretty good with vibes. Ariana says when she was like on Dancing with the Stars, he would take care of errands, he would make sure everything was good so she didn't come home to chaos. Like he would clean up, he would make sure Maya was taken care of. Like, and even if he turns out to be a garbage trash guy, he's doing errands for her, so that's something. He's making her life easier right now. So let's just take it. Okay. James said it did happen quick. But he's like, you know what? I don't think she needed 6 months to process it because she'd been lied to for 6 months. So it's like, you're dead to me. And he said, plus, like, they were kind of checked out of the relationship in a way because, they were having problems and Tom wasn't like fulfilling her and whatever. So, yeah. All right. Sheena and Tom. So, Sheena was mad at Tom after the fight that they had for 3 days, just so you all know, because this is like, you know, this whole storyline has Sheena has made it into like she got cheated on by Tom. So Sheena was mad at Tom for 3 days. So this was the fight where Tom was basically like, "You were the other woman," until she saw him next and he apologized and she just wanted to move past it. She feels she is over talking about the past and she just wants to move forward. I mean, yes and no. He's over talking about the past unless it's like that one time that Tom Venmoed her like $2,000 when she was struggling financially during the pandemic. That she'll talk about all day. Then they talk about the 1920s night, and there's not much there. James just said Schwartz was definitely turned on by Katie's outfit and wanted to keep the role play going. Like, duh. Okay, we all saw that. Now let's go to the finale. So, first of all, I enjoyed the finale because I it was very satisfying to see the producers trying to do something and failing. So there was that. It was satisfying to see Tom trying to do something and failing. There was also that. It was it was also infuriating though, because it's just them trying to do it is so annoying and it's just like it makes my blood boil. So the good thing about it is, I'm on the Twitter doing the roundups. I haven't posted it yet, but I've been gathering the tweets and like the majority seem to be very pro Ariana and anti this like male Tom Sandoval redemption type of season. Okay. So I'm not going to go too much into it because I'm obviously talking about the after show and we're going to get into it. So they start with the Ariana final convo, and the producer who was actually in the scene with Ariana is the one asking the questions on the after show. He's like, yeah, in the season finale, he's like, he's like, I need to make something happen, please. He's like, this season has been just like nothing. So in that final combo, so the producer asks basically, he asks her just to talk about the scene. He doesn't even really have a specific question. And Ariana says Sandoval, has never mentioned all summer anything even close to remorse or kindness. And he knows that this is his last shot with the audience. Yeah, exactly. I don't think I need to add anything to that. And then she kind of reiterates what we saw in the finale, that she's not here to facilitate him crying and then her looking like a bitch, which that's the other key part. It's not just about his redemption, it's about what it will look like on her. Because if he gets to cry and have his emotional moment and blah, 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 and she's cold and she doesn't give him back anything or listen or however she reacts, if she reacts angrily, she's going to look like the cold hearted bitch. So, and I guess you could argue, okay, she's still going to look like that, maybe walking away, but I don't think so. And it's not going to be to the same degree. So again, yeah, makes sense. So Sandoval says he wanted a sort of like he's like, well, I wasn't looking for her to like forgive me, but he's like, I wanted a kind of like what's done is done convo. Well, that's what Schwartz sort of puts those words in his mouth, but he co-signs it. And kind of like a how can we coexist? This is how you can coexist. You can not film one on one, and you can do group scenes, and you just don't talk to each other. And if you do, it's because you're yelling, and that's the drama of the show. That's how you can coexist. You've been doing it all season. Like, it's not like you weren't filming together. You filmed together a lot. Like, considering everything that happened, I am shocked by how much they filmed together, actually. And like the highlights of the season or the most dramatic moments of the season are them filming together and Ariana yelling at him, basically. So I don't understand what the problem is. Because isn't that what we want? Are we watching the show for drama? I'm not watching the show to see nothing but crying scenes and like I don't know, whatever. Okay, we'll get to that. So, and I also think, sorry, one more thing. Sandoval saying that what's done is done. Okay, so he's looking to wrap it up. That's what he's saying. Like, he's sick of this being the storyline. Of course he is, because he's the villain. So he's hoping he can wrap it up. And if I can wrap it up with her, maybe I can go back to being like the lovable, endearing Tom Toms the producers have tried to make us back into this season, which they totally have, right? With the tattoo scene, they're riding in the car together, they get slow motion, they get funky music, and then they had the like Tom um what was it? One of them was proposing to the other one with their like, we're going to live together and giving him like a keychain or whatever the hell that was. Like, they're still trying to do that cutesy Tom stuff. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody wants it. And you know how I know it's dead is because, yes, there were some tweets about it. And by some, I mean like me, who was like, no one wants this. There were some of those, but not a lot. For the most part, it was just people not even acknowledging it. And that's you know what they say, like what's worse than hate is indifference, and there's a definite indifference to the Tom partnership and brand, which I mean, I love to see it. Okay, so Ariana says that after San Francisco she came back to the house, she went to the kitchen to get something, and he was lying on the couch, Sandoval. She said it's very rare that they cross paths, but there was something she needed from the kitchen and she left it there, so she had to go get it. She said he was laying on the sofa where the TV is, and he said nothing to her. She said right then and there, they were alone, no cameras. He could have said something, he could have apologized, he could have had that moment that he wanted to have, and he didn't. There you go. Does that not say it all? He never emailed her. Like, yes, he emailed her always like house stuff. He never emailed her an email to apologize or try to make amends. He didn't. She's like, he could have left letters. Like, there's a million ways he could have, but it was nothing. The only attempt was that on camera thing that we saw. She's like, it needed to be on camera because that's how it's all about how he wants to look to the audience. And again, I know that we all know this, like all the reasonable people that watch this show know this, but just in case, we just have to hammer it home for all the like Lala's and Sandoval type people that also watch this show because they're out there. But it's just like, it's so transparent. If people don't see it at this point, if there's a chunk of the audience that doesn't see it, and there is, I don't think they're the majority, but they're out there. They don't see it because they just don't want to see it. And that's all I can say. So Ariana says she has no desire for forgiveness. Um, because she's like, I don't owe him anything. And Katie says, you know what? Forgiveness, and I thought this was a really good point. Katie says, forgiveness is something you give yourself. And you can do it even without telling him. So even if just say in like 2 years, she's over it and she forgives him, she doesn't have to go tell him. She could just keep that inside of her and know, I've let go of those feelings. I'm not mad anymore. I forgive him. I've moved on. You don't have to give it to him because then it becomes like a self serving thing. And he doesn't feel actual, like, I don't think he's capable of feeling like remorse and empathy or any of those feelings. And I'm not even trying to say that he's a sociopath. Like, I don't think he's like a sociopath where he feels no emotions, but I do think that I think he's got narcissistic personality disorder or something like that. I'm not here to, like, I can't diagnose. I'm not a therapist, but he's got something, okay, with narcissistic tendencies at the least. And I do think that he is in such, this show has kind of transcended reality for him. I think that he doesn't know what's real and what's not. Like, and he's living in like this alternate reality almost that he's made up. And I think his ego's gotten so out of control that I think it is getting in the way of his ability to show real like emotions, remorse, etc. So I don't know. Anyways, that's just my like pop psychology for the day. Okay. Again, I'm not a professional. I'm just a gal with a mic who is talking out of my ass, by the way. Okay. So, all right. Ariana says, oh yeah, no, I already said that. Sorry. Sandoval says he doesn't think that she'll ever forgive him. And he's like, because she's very stubborn. Okay. And that it's one of her strengths. And he says that sarcastically. Oh, he's really sorry, right, guys? But that he would like to talk to her. And he's like, maybe at the reunion. So he's still trying. He's still trying to get that redemption moment with Ariana. And we see it. We've seen it in the preview. If you haven't seen the preview, there's like a moment where he's like, you know me, Ariana, you know? Okay. So then they talk about Sandoval approaching her at the finale party in San Francisco. So Ariana says, "What makes better TV?" And I thought this was my favorite point from the after show because this was my point in my head when I was watching it and I tweeted it. What makes better TV? Sandoval crying for the millionth time, doing his fake messy cry for the millionth time, or a dramatic exit? And then she laughs. A dramatic exit. We have seen Sandoval cry so many times on this show. Remember when he did that apology? I think it was to Sheena, and he like videotaped himself crying and he sent it to her. There was that. There was like his fake crying. When was it? Oh, with Kristen, where he was like pretending that he gave a shit after he broke up with her. Like he has had so many fake cry moments and they all look the same. They all look just, they look like bad acting. Like a guy at an audition who's trying his damnedest to get the part and he's not going to get it. That's what they look like. They're not, it's not even good. Anyways, so Lala says, get ready for this. Lala says that Ariana coasts through every single fucking season and they're asking her to have one fucking conversation and she can't do that. So can you tell I wrote down exactly what she said? Okay, so are we completely like, do we not count season 10? Like, is in Lala's head, does season 10 just not count? Because I guess Lala's trying to say that there's a chunk of VPR that Ariana coasted through. So let's pretend we're going to agree with that. I don't, but let's pretend we're going to agree with that. Does she not get credit for basically creating and spearheading what is arguably one of the best seasons of Vanderpump Rules in the last 5 or 6 years, which is season 10. Season 10 is a phenomenal season. It was actually good either way, but it's even better because we know the subtext of Rachel and Tom and we're watching it. You know the clues, you know what I mean? It was just so good because of that. And none of it would have still been a good season, but it wouldn't have been on that level. And the reason it was on that level was because of Ariana. And the reason that we knew about all that and all that was made into a storyline, et cetera, and we had that amazing reunion and all that was again Ariana because she told production She told them what happened. She got it filmed. If she hadn't told them, it wouldn't have been on the show. They were done filming. They'd wrapped. Like, we wouldn't have gotten that, like, pick up the cameras, and like we wouldn't have had any of that. So I don't understand why she's getting no credit from Lala about this. Oh, she's just been coasting. How is she fucking coasting? She gave you legitimately your highest rated season ever. She gave you a storyline on a platter. She didn't know how the audience was going to take it. She didn't know she was going to be the quote unquote Beyonce or whatever Lala's trying to say. She didn't know everybody was going to rally around her and that it was going to turn into this thing that would be covered by the New York Times and CNN. She didn't know she was going to be on Dancing with. She didn't know any of that. For all she knew, it could have been exactly like it was for Katie, where everybody was like, well, fuck Katie, she's miserable. So who cares if Schwartz treats her like shit and cheats on her, which I'm sorry, a lot of the audience had that attitude for years. Where it could have turned out exactly like it did for Lala, where no one really gave a shit. Like, she didn't know. She had no idea what it was going to be. But she told them anyways. And she shared something very real. And they were able to pick up filming. So I'm sorry, Lala. I think that she made a really big contribution to that show, breathed life back into it when it was like maybe going to be canceled or maybe on its last legs. So get out of here. Okay. Now, on top of that, I also just don't agree that she coasted through every other season. I really don't. First of all, Ariana was on the show before you. Okay. And when Ariana came on, she came in pretty strong. I'm prettier than her. I'm cooler than her. I'm smarter than her. Right. She came on. She came on, not a lot of people liked it at first because she was like, this new girl. She was like coming into the group. She was like maybe like taking Tom from Kristen, whatever you want to paint it as, right? She had her whole conflict with Kristen. That was like a big storyline, was the Ariana versus Kristen. And then even when Kristen kind of like moved on from it and like Kristen and Sheena started being friends, that was like a storyline where Ariana was pissed because she didn't want, like, she was like, oh, everyone's forgiving Kristen, even though she's like, said she wants me to get run over by a bus and all this stuff. So like she's had storylines. Okay. She's she shared about her ex who was abusive. She shared about like her dad dying, like her mental health, not being able to get out of bed. Like, is she a more low-key personality? Yes. In the sense that she's not the dog with the biggest bark. Okay. The dogs with the biggest bark is Lala, obviously, right? Katie has a bigger bark. Like, they all have bigger barks than Ariana, but in terms of storylines, do I think Ariana, like, overall through all the seasons has been like the top with the storylines? No, but I actually think she's higher than Lala. Just gonna say it. If I have to do a rating, I would actually put her above Lala, because most of Lala's storylines are just kind of like fighting within the friend group and about like mostly stupid stuff. Like, she called me a whore, Bambi eyed bitch, like stuff like that. But in terms of like Lala never really, her relationship was never on the show until it was in like season 9 or whatever bullshit. And it was just complete BS. It was like, oh, here's Rand playing pickleball with Schwartz. Like, it was just bullshit. And we didn't really see, like, it's not like we were like filming in their like intimate moments and we were seeing their fights. Like, she just like gave us like this perfect manicured version of their relationship. And then before that, it was just like Lala was on the show. I guess she had her little fling with James, got pissed off at him once, and I don't know. I guess she shared that she got sober. I mean, again, like the decision to get sober and all that happened after the show. So I'm just kind of thinking, like, she hasn't had, like, her and Ariana are maybe around the same up until season 10. And then Ariana kind of, drives a lap around her. Sorry, I'm really like on the spot working this out in my head. But honestly, I don't think that Ariana has coasted any more than Lala. And I think Ariana has been overall has had to share more and has been more open than Lala has. I do think that because Lala really hid a lot. And the issue that everybody has with Lala is that she hid so much, but then she wanted all of our sympathy after. Now, is it possible that Tom and Ariana hid relationship problems, etc.? I guess. But it seems like their problems were pretty like kind of benign. Like, oh, we don't spend enough quality time. She doesn't buy enough toilet paper, right? Like, when it came time that it was useful for Tom to bring up all their relationship problems, he did it and it was all pretty boring. And Ariana was sharing that. She was like, we don't spend any quality time together. Like, we saw the intimacy between them like dwindling, right? So it just wasn't like that compelling. It became compelling once we found out he was having an affair, of course. Anyways, I'm sorry if that was like a big tangent, but I just I just feel like she's not giving Ariana any credit for this last season. Now season 10 and 11, two seasons that completely revolve around her, plus the seasons that she had before Lala came on this show and when Lala first came on this show where she was still dealing with her like her and Kristen being arch nemesis and stuff. So, you know what? Lala, fuck off. Okay. Um Lala says that, oh, here was the other thing. Lala also says that all these years, Ariana's been shoving Sandoval down our throats. Okay. Um, Sandoval would have been down our throats no matter what. Sorry, that's a really gross analogy, but he was on the show since season one. Lala. Even if Ariana never came on this show and was never a part of it, he would have been there. He was one of the OGs. He was dating Kristen. Like, it's like Lala only thinks of the show in terms of like the years she was on it. Like, it's not like Ariana was on the show and then she brought Sandoval on and we've all had to put up with him because it's the other way around. He brought Ariana on and then we just liked her more, but whatever. The point of the story is that we haven't had to put up with Sandoval all this years because of Ariana. We would have had to put up with him no matter what because him and Tom's were like they were always like the golden boys of the show that like the producers like gave them the best edits and always like put them on a pedestal. Like for God's sakes, LVP gave them a name of a restaurant. Everybody liked them so much. Now, I think what Lala means is that maybe Ariana has always defended him even when he's been an asshole. But again, you defended Ran. People defend their relationship when they're in it and they love the person. And a lot of times it's to their detriment and they shouldn't do it. But sometimes when you're in it, you don't see clearly. And you do, like, women protect their families and they protect what they think they need to protect. They do. I'm not saying it's always right, but they do it. So again, Lala does not have any sort of point that holds any water. And then Lala has her big BS speech about how we all have to have tough conversations. And then she says, you know, Brittany, she had to hear audio of her man like doing, like cheating on her with Faith. And again, you know, that's like really hard. And that's the kind of stuff that we have to do. Yeah, we know. Ariana did that. She found out via a recorded FaceTime in Tom's phone and she called the producers and told them. So I don't know what Lala wants. She has done everything that you say she should do. She's done it. Yeah, just her cheating scandal just happened in one of the later seasons. Britney's just happened to happen in one of the earlier seasons. It's just timing. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. But she did exactly what you want her to do. And you know whose cheating scandal was not during filming and came out between? Lala's. Of course. Just saying. Okay. And you know who else also hid their whole scandal when they were with a married man, etc., even though we were filming? Oh, guess what? It was Lala. Okay. So I'm sorry if some of my recording didn't sound great up until then. I just realized I had my mic on the wrong, like on like the surround setting and not on like the isolated setting that I was supposed to have it on. But obviously, I'm not going to go back and re record everything. So hopefully it sounds better now. Okay, so we were talking about the tough combos. And then, oh yeah, and just going back to the example that Lala gave with like Brittany and the thing. I mean, we want another example of a storyline that Ariana was involved in. That one. Ariana was the one who had that recording, who brought it to Brittany, and then she had to get into a screaming, fighting argument with Tom Sandoval about it. Multiple. They yelled at each other when she's like, "It wasn't on my phone." Everyone remember that? So there you go. So Sheena says it's hard because they're all there to heal and move on. Is that what the show is? Healing and moving on? Like, it is to a point in that like storylines eventually wrap up and move forward, but I I mean, this show, people are holding grudges for seasons and relationships are deep, and just like Sandoval has had it in for Katie for seasons and Lala's had it in for Sandoval for seasons until now, apparently. Um, I'm not watching this show to see everyone be like lovey-dovey having a seance, not a seance. What am I even talking about? A therapy session. Sorry, guys, the cold. Every time I say something dumb, I'm blaming the cold. James says that part of him wishes that Ariana would have had the one-on-one with Sandoval just because he loves drama. Which I was like, okay, that I'll give James. Agreed. I love drama. Okay. Brock says he's had to have hard convos about hard stuff on this show. Seriously? You've been here for 5 minutes. Okay. And the only reason you had to have those combos is because Lala made you have them because she was like, oh, he has kids in another country. And then everybody was mad at Lala about it. Remember, Tom Sandoval was like pissed off at Lala. Lala forgets everything. Suddenly, Tom Sandoval's like her bestie. Um, Either way, he's like, I've never had to have those convos with anybody, but, I've carried it in me for 8 years. So then to have that boundary, set by Ariana where she's saying she's not going to talk about it was that's hard for him. How does that make any sense? These are not these are not related at all. You had to talk about abandoning your wife and children to come to America to find a desperate reality star to marry so that you could have a free ride because the NFL thing didn't work out. Just saying. You had to talk about that because you decided to come into this show and no one knew who the hell you were. Ariana came in and she shared everything that happened. What happened is that her boyfriend cheated on her. She caught him in his phone and she told everyone about it. And she shared it with producers and has talked about it very openly. She just doesn't want to be besties with him now. That's not the same thing. Okay? And also, she didn't give birth to him. Okay? She doesn't have to pay Tom Sandoval's child support. You not paying for your children is a different story, sir. So James says it's because he's not going to say anything, Sandoval, that Ariana even wants to hear. He's like, anything. Thank you, James. James is like, anything that Sandoval says, Ariana's going to hate it. Exactly. That is exactly it. There is anything he's going to say is going to be BS, and it's going to be fluff, and it's going to be more manipulation, and it's going to be all for himself. Right? He's like, it's just going to ruin Ariana's night. So why would she listen to it? Exactly. It's so simple. Like, it's really so simple. Sandoval says he sympathizes with Ariana. Okay. And that it's probably too soon. And at a certain point in their relationship, on the show, they weren't being open and honest. And he found that unfair. I mean, okay. So I guess that's why he fucked Rachel, because he's like, well, Ariana's not being open on the show, so I'm going to have to go have sex with her friend. Was that the solution, Tom? Here's the other thing. He never said a damn word about them not being open or honest about their relationship until he was cheating. And the only reason he brought it up was so that he could villainize Ariana so that we wouldn't be as mad at him if we found out about the cheating. Or so that, sorry, because he didn't think we were going to find out. So that we wouldn't be as mad at him when he dumped her and started dating Rachel, which he was going to do between seasons and off the show. He was never going to share that with us, by the way. He was going to be a lazy piece of shit reality star who only shares what he wants to share to make himself look good. Okay. The reason this cast is pissed is because Ariana actually did something that is so raw and real that they can't control the reactions to it and that they can't control the narrative and they don't like it. Period. Dot. Okay. So I just need like a little soapbox and I'll be very happy. Where was I? And also, if he's going to use that argument, wasn't that his choice as well to hide his relationship? Anyways, all right. So Sandoval makes a speech, about how this has been the hardest season ever, and he's had to have all these hard conversations. Well, yeah, because of you. Like it's the hardest season ever because of you. That's your own fault. You don't get sympathy for it. And then he starts to say that he will continue to have those hard conversations. So, implying that he's willing to do the work, unlike Ariana. And of course, Schwartz co-signs this because he's, I don't know, he's Sandoval's little lackey. Schwartz says, you have to address the situation and, maybe she would agree. And then Ariana says she would encourage anyone who criticizes her to read her contract, her Vanderpump Rules contract, and find where in the contract it says that she has to do anything that she doesn't deem quote unquote real or that she doesn't want to do. Exactly. This is a reality show. I understand that it is produced. I understand that they give them topics and they're like, can you discuss this topic right now? But they don't tell them what to say about said topics. Okay. Do they have to film with people? No, they don't. That's why we've had lots of seasons where we had times where the girls wouldn't film with Lala and didn't want to be around her. And the only reason she got to be around is because Tom and Ariana would invite her to things. That's why we had seasons where we had people refusing to film with James and James was left out, right? We've had that happen. This is not unprecedented. Okay. So she also says that Ariana says this goes for every cast member on this show. They all have the right to exercise it. And she states that a lot of them have exercised it. Thank you. She also said that she won the award for Reality Star of the Year. So maybe she knows what she's doing. Mic drop. Okay. Then we have Brock and Sandoval talking about Brock talking about his statement about Sandoval being a better friend. So Brock says Tom has been there when no one else has been. Okay. And that he's the one that organizes events and gets everyone together. Okay, but is that not for his own ego? Like, he likes to dress up, he likes to party, he likes to like do whatever drugs and get effed up. Like, I just, I think it's not, I think it's kind of self serving, which fine. Like, it's nice that he gets people together, I guess. Like, I don't know. You're on a show together. You probably would get together anyways eventually. And I don't see that as something that is so incredible that it like redeems his character. Um, Sheena says Brock basically hasn't been around long enough to make a fair judgment. Okay, thank you, Sheena. And that's my point exactly. Like, he doesn't know. I'm sorry if I sniffle, but he doesn't know like everything Ariana and Sheena have been through together. He doesn't know the history of their friendship, like the daily ins and outs and what Ariana has done, what Sheena has done for her. Like, he just doesn't know that stuff. He's basically saying, I like Sandoval better because he sends us money sometimes and pays for shit. And I'm a broke ass. And because of that, my wife has had more money and that's helped me pay back my child support. So, yeah. I don't know why Brock keeps doing this to himself. He just needs to stop talking. Um, Lala says Sandoval for many years has always like checked in on Sheena and made sure she was okay. The only example I've heard of that is the money, the Venmo thing from COVID. And as we can tell, Sandoval buys people's loyalty and friendship. And I do think it's about him. It's a flex. Look what a big man I am. Look how much money I could make off of cameos during COVID because everybody loves me and Tom. Sheena couldn't do that because she's not as liked as us. Let me buy this audio guy now to try and like buy Sheena back because I need people to film with. Like it's always self-serving. Let me pay for this proposal because I want Rachel to see what a big man I am so that I can fuck her later or I already am. Like it is always something manipulative, right? He uses money and things and stuff and he equates relationships, friendship, love with money and stuff, right? And here's the thing, like Sheena and Brock are just basically admitting they have a price. They can be bought. So good to know. Okay. Um where was I? So Brittany says that Sandoval is the type of friend that does go the extra mile. And then they show a clip of him from Jax and Brittany's wedding where he's like, I have safety pins, different colors. I have like tampons, like just like the list of like insane stuff that he brought. And Jax is like, wow. And Jax looks so annoyed because this was the time where Jax was like not a fan of Sandoval and they were in a big fight. And he basically, this was when Jax was pissed at Sandoval because he knew that like Sandoval and Ariana maybe weren't getting along or something like that. And he wanted Tom to take some of the heat off of him. I think that's what it was. So he just wasn't having it. So even Jax knew that this purchasing of items was like Tom's way of manipulating, basically. Right. Um, okay. And by the way, I do want to acknowledge here that, yeah, this isn't the first time that somebody has brought up that Tom and Ariana were not fully honest about their relationship. However, when we hear about like, okay, what were the issues? It's like, it's hard because it's hard to know like who was hiding stuff and who wasn't, right? I don't know. And it doesn't change the way that I feel about really either of them. Like, do I wish they had been more honest when they were having problems? Yeah. But if it was like the problems that we were getting this season, because that was what season 10 was initially supposed to be about. It didn't get a ton of camera time because it was just kind of boring. It ended up getting more camera time because then Scandival broke, right? And then they re-edited stuff, I think, for the last half. And then it ended up being more of a thing. And the only reason it was compelling is because we knew Tom was cheating. But otherwise, it was just kind of like, meh, it wasn't that exciting. Right. And again, the only reason Tom was like sharing stuff was because he was trying to create that narrative. So, like, yeah, they could have shared that in season 8 or whatever about like how maybe their intimacy's waning. They need more quality time. But, like, yeah, would it have been like the most exciting storyline ever? No, it wouldn't have been. But it would have been something. They should have shared it. Like, I'm not saying like Ariana's perfect. She probably did, like, was just like, oh, I'd rather not talk about this. But I'm sure they've all done that about something at some point. Okay, so where was I? Lala says Ariana isn't a good friend. So she does say this straight up. I don't think, here's the thing, is I do think Ariana wasn't a good friend to Lala, but I think Ariana is a good friend to her actual friends. I think Ariana just never was that close with Lala. I don't know how else to say it. Like Lala got really close with like Katie, Stassi, and Kristen at one point, and she was less close with Sheena and less close with Ariana. And then, you know, time went on, and then now she seems to be less close with Katie and closer with Sheena. It's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. Like, I don't Like, I don't think it's because like they hate each other. I think they just never connected. I mean, now maybe they hate each other, but that's why it's like Lala saying she's a bad friend. It's like, okay, that your opinion doesn't mean that much. Like if Sheena was saying that, it would mean more, but she's not. So I don't know. Okay. So Lala's like, oh, she never picks up the phone. She doesn't respond to texts. And then Brock has this whole speech. Brock's got a lot to say. I said that already, but oh my God. So Brock says for someone who's been here 5 minutes, right? He says that, she lets her mind get in the way of stuff and she puts things off and she prolongs them. He's like, but I won't speak on her mental health. And then I was like, what? So is that what you're talking about? Like, are you saying that she doesn't respond and hang out a lot because of her depression? And you're like holding that against her? Like, I don't, okay. And then he says she ends up being a bad communicator. But then he's like, but I'm a bad communicator too. I'm terrible at answering texts, etc. So I'm like, Brock, where are you going with this thought? Because it's like the train track is just going off a cliff at this point. So my impression from what Brock says, my interpretation is that Ariana is not great at answering texts and she doesn't want to go out a lot and do stuff. And a lot of it is because of her like mental health issues, right? Like she just gets down, she spirals, doesn't answer texts. Then it's like overwhelming. Oh, I've got like 90 emails I haven't answered, all these texts. I don't want to do anything. And then you just end, right? Um, which like we have seen that on the show. Like I'll never forget there was a scene where Ariana goes like, horseback riding with LVP. And it's funny because the scenes on this show that stick out in my mind are all like, those most explosive classic scenes. Like he's a battered wife and like, Jack's getting in a fight. It's all that kind of stuff. But then this one scene stuck with me, even though it's not one of those scenes. And it's one of the only like calm scenes that really stuck with me. So Ariana goes horseback riding with LVP and LVP kind of like is like pushing her to like get her out of the house. And Ariana says, like, I've been in bed or I'm going through a point where like I don't want to get out of bed for days. And she's like, can I pick up some shifts? And this is like, I think this was like after Tom Tom opened and LVP's like, really? You want to like work shifts at Sir? And Ariana's like, I just need like a reason to get up and put makeup on. Right. And like at this point, she doesn't need to work at Sir. And it's like they've all kind of like moved past that, but she's asking to do whatever here and there just so that she can get out of this depression. Right. And to me, that was just one of the most real scenes because when you hear that someone is so depressed that they're not getting out of bed for days and you think like they have this great life, like they've like bought this like nice house in the valley and their partner, like now he's like a part owner in this restaurant, even though it's only 5% or whatever, but still it's like all this stuff. It does sound, you would think like, oh, like, why wouldn't she want to get out of bed? Right. But that's what depression is. Like, it doesn't matter how good things are. It really doesn't. Look at like somebody like Anthony Bourdain is always one that sticks out to me because I'm like, was a big fan of his, still am, obviously. But like, just like you look at him, it seems like what a great life. Like, he gets to like travel, eat amazing food, and, meet cool people. And like, wow. And he took his life. Like, so it's just like, it doesn't matter, right? Depression is such a powerful thing. And I just feel like none of these people try to understand it in a real way. Like, even to the point that like it's being held against her. Like, she's a bad friend. She doesn't like come out a lot and reply to texts. But then he, in the same breath, acknowledges that it's because of her mind and he says mental health. So if that is why, and you're acknowledging that, don't bring it up. Why are you using it against her? Okay. Now, this was, I thought, the most interesting thing too about this part is that James says he's never had any issues with getting communication from Ariana. He says whenever he texts her, she always responds. He also says that she even replies to all his Instagram stories. And he goes, and not just now, she always has. Like he says it's so matter of fact. And he's like, maybe she just picks and chooses who she wants to respond to. And Brock just goes, ouch. And then Brock's like, maybe it's just Sheena, you know? And then I was like, maybe Sheena just texts about annoying things too. Like I could see Sheena just being like, hi, did you listen to Good as Gold again? Like, I don't know. I can't even think of a joke right now to make up, but I could just see like Sheena being like, or sorry, Ariana being like, oh, I'll get back to that later. Like, you know, some people are just more exhausting to text because you know it's going to keep going and they're going to be obnoxious. I bet you that's it. But you're like, I love her, but you know, she's still Sheena. Sheena says over the last year, she has gotten less texts from Ariana, but she understands that she's been busy, but it does still hurt. But she also thinks that Brock is wrong when he says that Sandoval's a better friend overall, because she says that like historically and overall, Ariana's been a better friend, and that they're the type of friends that like they could go like 3 months without talking, but then if she needs something and she picks up the phone, like Ariana will be there, drop of a hat. Which I really connected with that because I have friends who were like really close, but we will literally go 3 months without talking. Mostly because we're all adults, grown adults now who are like in our late 30s and 40s, and we have children or marriages or houses and full-time careers. Like we don't have time to be like shooting the shit texting all day and every day. Listen, we text maybe like we might text sometimes we go through phases, you know, you'll text them like every day for like a week or a lot one day, but then you'll go through 2 weeks where you don't text a lot. Like that's just real life when you become a grown up. We're not in high school anymore. Okay, the amount that you see someone physically doesn't necessarily equal the level of friendship that you have with them. That's called being a grown up. Okay. All right. So then they ask Lala about the God comment, which is the like, I've never seen somebody who gets cheated on and becomes God. She didn't become God. That's the thing. But that just shows Lala's perception. Lala sees what Ariana has achieved as like a godlike status in the reality world. And that just shows that's what Lala wants and can't have. So anyone trying to say this isn't jealousy needs to check themselves because that's exactly what it is. Lala says the world was indifferent to Ariana. Like basically she's like, no one gave a shit about her, which I was like, that's kind of rude. I strongly disagree. Do I think she was like the star of Vanderpump Rules? No. But I also don't think Lala was the star of Vanderpump Rules. I wouldn't like the only people like the people on Vanderpump Rules that people really like stand and gave a shit about was like Stassi in her heyday, right? And like I guess yeah, like Stassi in her heyday, the Tom Toms had their moment, I guess. But I would say Stassi was the only one who was like the like star power until obviously all that shit happened and she was like calling the police and being racist. But up until then, she was the star, right? Everyone else, and that's why Tom always hated Stassi. He was always so jealous. Him and Tom were probably like second place in terms of like popularity and liked. Like they were like, but they were like popular as a duo, right? Like Tom Sandoval couldn't get that like on his own stardom, you know what I mean? And I also think that Jax was kind of a close second, but he was like more of a villain. So I think Sandoval was a little less jealous of that because like Sandoval never wanted to be the villain, but he was still jealous because Jax and Stassi were really the stars of the show, even though Jax was like the villain star. So, you know what I mean? They just, none of them were ever at that level. And that does include Ariana, right? But at the end of the day, like to say that everyone was indifferent, I don't really agree with that. I can't really agree with that. Now, I understand what Lala's saying in that like her popularity certainly skyrocketed, but she, again, that's not her fault. Her popularity skyrocketed because of Sandoval. If you want to be mad at someone, you should be mad at Tom Sandoval. He did this. If he hadn't done this, everything would have been the same as it was before. And no, you know, and in Lala's words, nobody would give a shit about Ariana. Like, okay. Not that I think no one gave a shit. I just think like Lala's trying to say she wasn't like on people's radar in a big way. Okay. James, then they tell James that Lala said that, and James is like, that is such a Lala thing to say. And like, he just seems like he like rolls his eyes. So I thought that was hilarious. And he says it in such a like sarcastic, annoyed tone, which I loved. Because James is like, James is just like, Lala's always got to be like the big dog with the big bark, with the big opinions, right? James says he sees someone making something of a shit situation. Exactly. That's all she's doing. You can't be so mad about it. I mean, you can, but whatever. He says that he sees Ariana as someone who's very grateful and who's working her ass off. And he's like, I haven't seen like this ego thing, right? Brock actually co signs this and he says, you know, look how hard she worked to be good in Chicago and it's doing really well and it's like breaking records. I was like, okay, I guess Brock finally said something half decent. James says, you know, she was not half assing anything. Like she, you know, she got these opportunities and she put her full effort into them. And James is like, listen, she's been pretty humble about it. James is like, if that was me, I would be so annoying, which thank you. Thank you, someone with self awareness, because James would be so annoying. Um, Ariana says she has been working really hard to be like decent at what she does. And that's the word that she used. So I like how she's still being humble, right? Like she's like, I've been like, I take acting classes and dancing lessons and I'm just trying to be like decent at this. And like a lot of us would say she's been more than decent, but it's funny because like she's still downplaying her own talent. Um, and she says, like, in a way, she's always been preparing for this because she's always wanted, just like all of them, a career in entertainment, which is why they're all jealous. At the end of the day, they're all reality stars because they couldn't make it in another way. They all wanted to be actors, musicians, etc. And this is the best that they've been able to get. And now Ariana's getting something better, and they're all pissed. Just like they were all pissed at Stassi when they were all pissed at Stassi because she was getting book deals, her podcast blew up, you know, she was transcending VPR before she had her downfall, right? And they're always jealous of whoever's doing that. Like that's just how they are. Because for the most part, they're all terrible people. So, okay. Ariana says, of course, now that she's having success, people are like, how dare she enjoy her success and be proud of herself? And, you know, we can't just let her have that. We have to call her an egomaniac, etc. Exactly. This is the biggest, to me, most obvious example of misogyny. And it's funny because Lala keeps trying to paint herself as like a girl's girl who like supports women. And Lala has been the most misogynistic this season. Sheena says she doesn't think Lala is jealous. Well, of course she's going to say that because her and Lala are like besties now. Because you know, Lala's a badass. I I don't like Lala wants to be a badass, but she's actually not. Like somebody who goes on Amazon Live and says they don't give a shit about anyone's opinions, and then the next week goes on and cries, and who pretends that they champion women and that they're this like badass feminist who learns so much from their last relationship with a toxic guy, but then forgives the toxic guy and takes the toxic guy's side. That's not a badass, Sheena. Has built, but Lala's built an empire since she left Brands. That's what Sheena said. But you know, she was at her breaking point on the finale. She'd had a lot of tough conversations. Again, that's her own fault. Everyone was at each other's throats, and she says, you know, after Lala got cheated on by Ren, she still showed up. So did Ariana. Like I'm gonna throw my computer at the wall. I swear to God. And I already watched this. So did Ariana. She got cheated on. And not only did she show up, she showed up when filming was done and she didn't have to. She called them. And then she showed up for the next season 3 months later out of being cheated on and filmed again. And she filmed scenes with him. I don't know what they want. Okay. Sheena says her life is Lala's. She's talking about Lala, is at a different point than she thought it would be. Okay, so here we go. And that and then Sheena throws Katie in here because she's thinks that's going to validate this thought. She says that Lala and Katie has said this too, has wished that the fans had rallied more around them when they were cheated on, but they got more hate, and it would have been nice if they'd had that and that they'd felt that support. Okay, so let's talk about this for a sec. I can see, I can honestly and truly see how Katie and Sheena can kind of like feel that type of way. Okay, I get that. But listen, here's the thing. Katie, I think Katie got it the worst, in my opinion, because Katie was with a man who was a piece of shit and treated her like garbage for years, and no one took her side, right? And a lot of that was because of like when the show first aired, it was kind of still like we were still in that sort of like in between time where like people were still really like there was a lot of like inner misogyny. Women were always getting the blame for shit, right? And then culturally, the world kind of changed, right? And it's almost like a lot of it was just the timing. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people are rewatching the old seasons and are like, damn, why was I so anti Katie? Like, a lot of her reactions are just to Schwartz being a pig and he cheated on her a million times and she was like pretty nice about it and forgiving. Like, considering what he did, so what if she rage texted him? Like a lot of people are changing their points of view. And a lot of it is because, yeah, the cultural context, the world has changed. People are more aware of these issues. People are not standing up for misogyny. Or sorry, people are standing up against it more, right? And people kind of see, and have a clear vision of that. And it's a bigger, more talked about thing, right? But when the show first aired, like it wasn't like cool to be a feminist and like people didn't want to talk about that kind of stuff. And you still had people like Sheena being like, I'm more of a guy's girl. And like people liked that. And then nowadays it really has changed, right? Now, if you say that, people are like, oh God, she's a pick me, like it's just, that's just how the world goes, right? But it's like, that's not Ariana's fault, okay? Ariana, is she lucky this happened to her in 2023 as opposed to 2001? Yes, because I do think in 2001, Sandoval could have gotten away with a lot more of this, or even in 2010 or whatever. And there would have been a lot more of the people being like, well, she wasn't willing to marry him and give him children, so she kind of deserved that. Or, she wasn't putting out enough, so that's what you get. Like there would have been that opinion was still out there. Do not get me wrong, but there would have been way more of it, right? So again, it's like it does suck that Katie had to deal with a lot of that, and it does suck that a lot of the audience fell for what the Toms were selling when it came to villainizing Katie and the women for all that time. But again, we can't rewrite history, and there's no point in crying over spilled milk. What we can do is acknowledge things now and, you know, hashtag justice for Katie or whoever, right? And that's what we're seeing. And do we see Katie being all bitter and hating Ariana? Because Katie certainly, and Katie's still, people are still hating on her and calling her a bitch and whatever. Like that is still going on. Don't get me wrong. There's still lots of people who hate her. Maybe you're listening and maybe you're not a Katie fan. That's fine. You don't have to like Katie. I don't even care. But my point is that she didn't get any sympathy all the times that she got cheated on. She really didn't. Like she didn't. Maybe a little, but hardly any. No one rallied around her, which is probably why she probably did say that. But again, is she stewing on it? Is she sitting there all bitter? No. What she's done instead is seen, I didn't like how I was treated. I didn't like how that felt. That wasn't good. So I'm not going to be like those people that tried to blame me when my boyfriend or husband was cheating on me and treating me like garbage. Instead, I'm going to be a girl's girl and I'm going to rally behind Ariana. And that's what she did. And that's what the rest of them should have done too. End of story, right? Here's the other thing is that Lala's situation was more recent. Lala's was like post Me Too, all that kind of stuff. Why didn't people have that same sympathy and rally around Lala? Well, that's a little different. Okay. It's because Lala was trying to act like she was so shocked by the situation. Like, what? Rand was running a casting couch. That man was creeping around on me. Like, Lala, really? That's how you met him. There's even a scene where she talks about how they would like act that out, and they would do this like fantasy where she would like pretend she was an actress trying to get a gig and stuff. Like, it's just, and like you knew he was married and you knew he had kids. Like, it's just, and it's like, how can you, it's just, it's different, right? She knows it is too. She just doesn't want it to be, right? Because maybe she does look back on it and maybe she does know like she made a dumb mistake, right? And, she traded maybe some of her integrity and dignity and morals, for, a flashy lifestyle and a guy that could like take care of her and give her everything quickly. And yeah, it seems like she liked that. She liked the private jets. She liked the nice house. She liked like being with a guy who was like a producer and who said he was going to get her acting gig. She liked it. And maybe looking back on it, she's like, damn, that kind of wasn't worth it. Right. So that's why she still kind of wants some pity, but it just doesn't work like that. Right. And it's not the same situation. So the whole thing is just very like, it's hard for me to give any of these girls sympathy when I see how like Katie has handled it, right? Katie, who got no sympathy, right? But instead of, and if Lala had not gone down this bitter road, sorry, she would be getting so much more probably support from the audience. And she would probably be able to like kind of like ride the success of this even more. But she's kind of screwing herself here. So Lala says that off camera, everyone was really pissed about how Ariana was maneuvering through the season. I mean, I haven't seen that. Like watching, I can only judge by what I see, but watching the after show, Sheena seems like medium pissed. Sheena's probably way more pissed behind closed doors, that I believe. I think Sheena's got a lot more to say, like to Lala in private. Who else? James, I don't see that at all. Katie, I don't see that at all. Schwartz and Sandoval, obviously, do their opinions mean anything? No. So yeah, I guess like Lala, Sheena, and the Toms. Okay. So, but we know that they're pissed. They're pissed on camera in a lot of ways. So I don't know why she's acting like this is like some secret that none of us know, but she says they're all mad about how she's maneuvering. How's she maneuvering? Give me an example. Like if Lala could give me an example, I might be able to listen and take her point seriously for a half second. But then she's like, but you know what? All of a sudden, this happens. And like what Ariana says, no one can question. You can question it. No one's saying you can't question it. Here's the problem. You're all too chicken shit to say your real opinion and stand in it because you're scared of the audience. Just admit it. You all want to be loved by the fans and you want to hate Ariana and be jealous, but you don't want to deal with the backlash. That's fine. Hate Ariana. Be jealous openly. If that's how you honestly, truly, authentically feel, stand in it. Say it with your chest and stop. And then don't go home and cry because the fans don't like you. That's what this show is. This show has been on for 10 years. And for 10 years, people on this show, it's been a rotating door of the audience hating people and them getting hate and, comments on social media, etc. They've all been through it. The women have been called whores and mistresses. The men have been called cheating asshole. Like they've all been through the hate. Like, yes, this might be next level. I admit that. But at the end of the day, you can question. It's not our fault if you just don't want to question because you're scared of what the commenters are going to say. That's your own problem. We're the viewers. We're allowed to have opinions. Sorry. So Brittany says, oh, it sounds like Lala should come to the Valley. And then Brittany laughs. Oh, please no. I do not want this cast going to the Valley. I did when the season first started because, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. And the Valley was only a little bit in. And I think I talked about this on my other podcast, but I don't know, maybe it was on the Patreon, but either way, I do not I do not want Lala on the Valley. Lala has screwed herself so hard. No one wants her on the Valley now. The fans don't want it. And the Valley is so good as it is. The cast is perfect. Do not change it. If there's any Bravo people listening, there probably isn't, but let's just pretend. Please do not put Lala on it. I don't need Sheena on it either, but I could deal with that because I kind of want to see what happens with her and Brock if they're going to get rid of Vanderpump Rules. But what I do not need on the Valley is Sheena and her fake, inauthentic, produced ass. That is what I do not need. Okay, so is this my last topic? Oh my God, how do I still have so much left? This is so long. Do you all hate me because this is so long, or are you happy? I don't know. Okay, so God comment. Where was I? Okay, Ariana and Sandoval convo with Ariana. So Sheena says, that's my next topic, if that made any sense. Sheena says she's not fully forgiving Sandoval, but she needs to, get past the hurt because he's caused a lot of hurt for her and it was impacting her. She lost weight. She couldn't sleep. Once again, you'd think Sheena got cheated on. Ariana says she's never told Sheena what to do. And she's like, but at the same time, I'm not her diary. So I don't need you to like tell me everything. Exactly. Do what you want. Just leave Ariana out of it. Why did she should be the last person who you're using as a sounding board. James says that everyone kind of had to deal with this situation in different ways. And he says it's been exhausting for him too, because Tom is always trying to buddy up to Allie. He's always like going up to Allie to be like, tell her about like, oh, I went bungee jumping and like whatever. And James is just like, fuck off, basically. James says that he's been really annoyed because of how much Tom's starting conversations with Allie. See, this man never changes. Now he's even like trying to talk to Allie. Just saying. And he's like, James says, Allie doesn't care that you went bungee jumping 10 years ago. Stop showing her the video. Like, I guess he's like showing Allie some video that when he went bungee jumping. Lala says a lot of Sheena's fears are because she's nervous about what people will say in the comments. Again, that's not anyone else's problem except Sheena's. You can't put that on Ariana. You can't put that on anyone else except yourself. You can only control, you're the only one who can control your emotional reaction. There's nothing that Ariana can say that is going to change the audience's perception of Sheena. The only thing that will change the audience's perception of Sheena is Sheena's actions and words on the show. Because Sheena can have 9,000 scenes with Ariana being like, I love you, your family, I'll never be mad at you, you can be besties with Sandoval, go be friends with him, frolic in the fields, like whatever, right? Ariana could say that. She's not going to, but let's just pretend she did. It wouldn't make a difference. The audience would still see Sheena being friends with Sandoval and crying about him, and the audience would still be pissed because the audience would just be like, what a two-face, and oh, of course Sheena forgives Sandoval. Like, that would have happened no matter what. It's not because of what Ariana is saying or not saying. Like, Sheena and Lala are acting like Ariana has some magic sentence that if she uttered it, all of a sudden everyone's minds would change. No, no, no. We see Sheena. That it wouldn't change anything. Like, Ariana even came out when that picture was taken and was like, Sheena's a good friend. And like, it didn't change shit. Okay. And at the end of the day, we're going to judge you on what you're doing. And what you're doing is being friends with him. So it's just like, it doesn't matter. Okay. And Lala also says that, like, I guess Sheena's very active in the comments on social media. Her mom and her publicist will send her all the negative stuff people say. Well, again, not Ariana's responsibility. Tell the publicist and the mom to stop doing that. And also, Sheena, get out of the comments. Why are you like, Sheena has to have a vlog? She's too much. She's too much on social media. She's too much on everything. Like, because Sheena's so self-involved and self-obsessed. She's like, those people who like have to post everything about themselves constantly because they're so into themselves. Like, that's Sheena. Except Sheena gets like validation because she's a reality star. So she's going to just keep doing it more and more. But it really would help her to just step away a little bit. So then they talk about Dan. Lala jokes that she needed to dry herself off after seeing him. Okay. After his hair came down with no shirt on. Um, yeah, I guess we can add that to the layer of I don't know, jealousy. Not that I think like Lala wants Dan or something like that. I don't think that. I just think that Lala's kind of like how is Ariana living this fairy tale where she's got like this hot guy, Dancing with the Stars, Chicago, Love Island. Everyone feels bad for her because she got cheated on, and I got none of that. Just saying. And didn't even get alimony or anything because I never married Rand. Okay. So Lala says Ariana made him out to be different than he was. So said he's been in fights and he won't shake Sandoval's hand. But then when Lala met him, he was quite normal. Um, I don't see what the contradiction is. Ariana didn't say Dan is going to fight Sandoval. She just said he won't shake his hand, and he didn't. Like Sandoval like came up to him, tried to shake his hand, and he didn't. Dan didn't. And then Sandoval like tried to like play it off like he was like brushing his hair back or something. So yeah, he did exactly what Ariana said he would do. Now, the only reason I'm sure she mentioned the fight thing is because maybe he's been in fights. And maybe he was just saying if Sandoval tries to like start a conflict or make it, which he didn't. He tried to play it as the like, I'm like smooth and I'm okay with my girlfriend, my ex girlfriend having this new guy, whatever. But like Ariana didn't know how Sandoval was going to act because he can have his like tough guy moments, right? And you never know with that guy. So I think that's probably why she said that. But of course, Lala just like probably takes it out of context and just chops up the pieces she wants to use. Brittany and Jack say they like Dan. Schwartz is like obsessed with him. Schwartz is like, he's so cool. He's awesome. He's so into him. And you can tell Sandoval's like kind of annoyed, but like trying to hide it. And then Schwartz is like, he played it so well. He was like low key. He didn't try to be like too macho and like get into things. And Jax is like, yeah, he's playing it like perfectly. And then Schwartz says again before they cut off, he's like, he's awesome. Like he says it again. I just thought that was so funny. And then James is like, yeah, I think, Dan played it kind of safe by not going to all the events in San Francisco, which I see what James is saying. But I think it was the smart move. Because I think if he'd done anything else, he'd be getting accused of like clout chasing. So I totally get why you did that. Then last topic. I swear this recap is going to end at some point. Sandoval audio guy. Okay. So Brock says that Sandoval volunteered the audio guy for Sheena. Of course he did. Of course he did. Like I said before, he's trying to buy people back and they can be bought. So there's that. James mocks it and says, oh, it's just Sandoval like trying to big himself up. Like, oh, I've got this like special audio guy. And then James kind of mocks it like what they did with the audio was like pretty simple. Like he could have done it or somebody else could have done it. And like it's just Sandoval trying to pretend he has these connections and like knows things. That's exactly what it is. Thank you, James. Sheena says, she's torn between looking at it with the perspective that Sandoval is that same friend that she once knew who steps up and does things for her. But she's also torn between that and the other perspective that he's just doing this for redemption and to look good for the cameras. Yeah, you shouldn't be torn. The second one is the correct option. And then she says, either way, she has to just trust her gut and she's got to go forward and do what she thinks is best in the moment. So that's Sheena's way of saying, I'm going to do the dumb thing that I know is wrong, but I'm going to do it anyways because it's easier for me. Like, it's easier in the sense that like, I guess Sheena thinks it'll get her another season and another paycheck. That's what she's saying. Okay, so that's the end. This has been incredibly long. I'm almost at 2 hours. My apologies for how long it was. There was a lot of rants, there was a lot of tangents, there was a lot of me getting my emotions out, but it was very cathartic and therapeutic because I was so bothered by that finale and even more bothered by a lot of the after show comments. I hope that it was therapeutic and cathartic for you too listening. I hope you were like getting worked up with me and just get it out of your system, because we need to do that because the reunion's coming and it's going to be infuriating. So we all have to prep for it mentally. I was thinking I might recap the reunions, even though there's not going to be an after show, I'm assuming. But I might do it. I'm thinking about it. Is that something we're interested in? Let me know. Please follow my Instagram at the Bravo Papers. I haven't been able to post with my last few episodes because my Canva account, I got locked out of it. I couldn't remember the password. Something messed up. And then, so all my like saved designs and stuff are in there. But now I think I can get back in because they reset it for me. So I think I'm good. So let me know what you think. And thank you so much for hanging in there for this long ass after show recap. If you're interested in my summer house after show recaps or just extra content, I talk about like VPR, Valley, that kind of stuff on Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry if I'm nasally and sniffly today, but you know, we just couldn't wait. This was too important of a finale to talk about. So I hope it sounds okay. All right. Love you all. Thank you so much for being listeners. You are all the best. And until next time, you are now in the know for everything Bravo. Thanks for listening, everyone. Your support really means everything to me. And this show wouldn't be possible without you, the listeners. So please, if you enjoy the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more, you can join my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. And for $5 a month, you'll get 4 extra podcast episodes a month. You'll also get early releases of Bravo Paper episodes and more. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Bravo Papers and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at Bravo and Botox and at The Bravo Papers. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can at buymeacoffee.com/Bravo and Botox. You know, send your love through some much needed caffeine. And any guest that was on today's episode will be in the show notes, all their social media and contact information. So thank you so much, everyone. Keep overanalyzing Bravo.